The wins nobody puts on the scoreboard. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of JV Matters. I'm your host, Coach Lowry. This YouTube video and podcast is for coaches, parents, and athletes, and anyone who knows football isn't just about Friday night lights. All right, let's get rolling. So, you know, people talk about football. They usually talk about the wins and losses. And it's true. Who doesn't want to win, right? We all hate to lose, even at the JV and freshman level. So that's understandable. The scoreboard is easy to see, the records are easy to track, and the standings tell everybody who has won and who has lost. But have you, as a coach, just watched a player who finally got what you have been teaching him the entire year? Just kind of had that aha moment. But after years of coaching JV, I've learned that some of the most important wins never show up on the scoreboard. You'll never see them, not 2 years later. In fact, many of the victories I remember most had very little to do with the final score. I remember players who started the season with no confidence at all, players who were third or fourth string on the depth chart, players who doubted themselves, players who were afraid to make mistakes, players who thought they weren't good enough. Then something changed. Maybe it was the confidence. Maybe they finally got confidence. Maybe it was a breakthrough during practice. Again, that aha moment. Maybe it was finally seeing someone or some success after weeks of frustration. Again, that aha moment. This is what every coach waits for. They just want to see that, just that aha moment. It'll come. You'll get it every year. Little by little, they start believing in themselves. The players do. They just like, I get it, coach. I understand it. I know what you're talking about. And once that happens, everything changes. That's a victory. Not one that shows up in the newspapers or on the scoreboard on Thursday nights, but a victory nonetheless. I remember players who struggled academically, players who were consistently in danger of becoming ineligible, players who needed reminders about responsibility almost every day. These are those players you stay awake at night worrying about. You talked about that in my YouTube video last night or yesterday. Because as we know or may not have all the information in front of us, then one day they started taking ownership. Again, that aha moment. Like, this is for me, coach. I got it. They started turning assignments in. Their grades improved. Their attitude improved. Their future improved. The light bulb finally turned on. That's a victory. I remember players who lacked discipline, players who always seemed to have an excuse for everything. I get it now during summer ball. Coach, I didn't have this or I didn't have that. I couldn't find a ride. They have an excuse for everything. Players who wanted success but weren't willing to work for it. Then one day, something clicked. They stopped making excuses. They started holding themselves accountable. They became leaders. That is the win. That is what you're looking for. That does show up. That does not show up on the newspaper or in the newspapers. That's a victory. The funny thing about coaching is that those victories often matter more than a touchdown or a win on Thursday night. Because football eventually ends. Every player and every coach, football's going to end eventually. You're going to be done. You're going to hang up your cleats. Coach is going to hang up their whistle. It's going to be over for them. Eventually, the helmet comes off for the last time. Some of these seniors that are playing right now out there in the leagues, this is their last year, their last hoorah. They'll hit their last game in November or December. It's done. They're over. What remains, though, however, are the lessons. And they will need these lessons to carry them through life. The habits, the characters, the disciplines. Those things stay with players long after the game is over. After the scoreboard is shut off, the final whistle blows. Those will stay with your players. That's why JV coaching is so much different than what many people think. Yes, we want to win. Don't get me wrong. Every coach wants to win. Every player wants to win. Who doesn't? I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to win. I'd be lying if I said I didn't get upset if I lost. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I lost. I lose sleep at night when I don't win. But we're also trying to build something bigger than a record. We're trying to build young men. And many of those young men will never be able to continue football after high school. And that process is rarely neat. That it's rarely quick. It's often frustrating. Sometimes you don't see the results immediately. Sometimes you wonder if a player is listening at all. Sometimes you feel like you're repeating yourself or repeating the same lesson 100th time, over and over and over, till that light bulb finally goes on. Then, years later, a former player reaches out to you. Maybe at a game, at an alumni game, maybe in a grocery store, maybe through social media, and he tells you something you said mattered to him. Something you taught him stuck with him. Something he learned on your team helped him later in life. A comment, a saying, a statement, anything. Those moments remind you why coaching matters, why you do this job every day. Because the truth is, some of the most important victories happen long after the season ends, long after the scoreboard is turned off, long after people have forgotten who won that game or any of the games. But in the end, the individual player is the winner. The game of life. The best coach understands that they understand football is just a vehicle. Development is the destination. And that's why some of the greatest wins in coaching are the ones nobody ever puts on the scoreboard. You never see them. It's never in the newspaper. It's never talked about. You never see it until later on in life. So my closing thought for this is, if you're a coach, don't judge your impact only by the wins and losses. Some of the most important victories you'll ever help create won't be measured by points. They'll be measured by the lives you help influence along the way. So you may never see your finished product until years gone by, but your product is in the works. It's being polished. It's being refined. You will see it later on down the road. I have. Again, thanks to you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, like what you saw, please hit the like button and share and subscribe below. I appreciate that. You all have an outstanding day. I will see you in the next episode.